Hello there, friends. This is Jimmy Maverick. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today we are going to talk about the Week 8 waiver wire pickups. Again, my motto is never stop improving your team, so we got some good names for you to check out, see if you can get them off the waiver wire this week. Here we go.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Fantasy Maverick podcast. And today we're going to talk about the Week 8 waiver wire pickups. And before I begin, if you could please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share this with your friends, and of course subscribe. All those things help me with my YouTube algorithm, and I do very much appreciate it. So let's just get right to it. So anyway, I've had kind of a tough couple of weeks, man. I still got some teams that are doing really well, but my Fantasy Football Players Championship teams, man, they have gone ice cold. All three of them. I've been 0-6 over the past 2 weeks. It really sucks. It's really hard to see this happen. And you know, it hasn't been so much injuries. It's just underperforming players. You know, I mean, last week's Kansas City 3 points certainly didn't help my teams at all. But I'm just hoping that I did have a number of players on bye, you know, with the Week 7 bye Mageddon, so that was a part of it as well. But I'm hoping things get back to what I had been doing over the first 5 weeks of the season. And I'm in all my leagues, I've fallen out of playoff contention, but I'm right there. Like in one, I'm in 5th place. The other one, I'm in 5th place for points. So I don't have to do much, but I just got to have some good weeks for points over the next few weeks. The season is only 12 weeks long in the tournament. Then you go to the playoffs. So I've got 5 weeks left to turn it around on these teams. But otherwise, you know, I've done well in my PPR. In my PPR league and in my custom points league, I'm still number 1 there. But obviously, my high stakes leagues, those are the ones that are most important to me. And so I'm hoping Week 8 is going to be better for me than Week 6 and 7 was. But let's just get right to the waiver wire. So first of all, let's talk about quarterback streamers. And I got to say, man, my stream for the week, if you need a quarterback, man, go for Trevor Lawrence. He's only 41% rostered in leagues. He's coming back after his first NFL victory and a bye week, and he gets to face Washington, who has given up the most points to fantasy quarterbacks over the course of this season. Great matchup. Great game. I think he's going to be really, really good this week. I'm very excited about Trevor Lawrence. I am actually starting him in one of my leagues in place of Lamar Jackson. Other players that I do like Kirk Cousins, who is 69% rostered, so he's a little bit harder to get, but you should check your waiver wire to see if maybe somebody dropped him onto the waivers after last week's bye Mageddon. He gets Dallas at home. Dallas is top 10 for opposing quarterbacks, so that's a nice matchup, and of course he's got great weapons on that team. Coming off the bye week, they should do very well. I also do like Daniel Jones. He's only 28% rostered, and although he's not playing Washington, he does get to play the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have given up the second most points to fantasy quarterbacks this season. So I think Daniel Jones is going to be a fine choice. It would be nice to see some of his players, some of his weapons come back from injury, but he still has, he's got enough that he's going to be able to be productive against this Kansas City defense. So you got that as well. So let's move on to running backs. Now, my top running back pickup this next week would be Khalil Herbert, who is 59% rostered on the Bears. And essentially, we're still not sure as to when David Montgomery is going to be coming back. So in the meantime, I think Khalil Herbert is a start. He is the only player that I would be comfortable starting from this team because the offense is so bad. But last week he got 18 rushes and 5 targets against Tampa Bay, and that's one of the best run defenses in the league. So I'm comfortable with this guy. Very impressive effort, and he gets a mediocre San Francisco rush defense next week, so he should be productive. So I like him. I'm also liking Michael Carter. Now, he is 62% rostered, and I know the Jets are one of the worst teams in the NFL, just like the Bears are. I mean, they're peas in a pod this season. Week 7, he got 11 touches and 9 targets in a blowout loss. And the thing that makes me comfortable with Michael Carter is the 9 targets. Obviously, negative game script, which you're going to expect for the Jets going forward. He's still going to be utilized, and that's what makes me like him for fantasy. I think he's a great choice. He gets Cincinnati next. Cincinnati just has a middle-of-the-road rush defense, so I think, again, he should have a decent game, even if they're going to lose badly, which they probably will. Next up, how about Kenneth Gainwell? Gosh, man, Miles Sanders has been destroying my soul this season. Just I can't believe it. I was so excited in one of my leagues. I drafted him in the 5th round, and I thought I was getting such a bargain by taking him in the 5th. And it has not even come close to paying off. Gainwell has PPR value, so I'm really only recommending Kenneth Gainwell if you're in a PPR league. He got 8 targets and 5 carries last week. So that's below my 15 threshold. But again, PPR with 8 targets, you can start him. He's going to get enough volume that you're going to be able to use him. Up next, he gets Detroit. Top 2 matchup for running backs, for opposing running backs. So there you go. Great matchup. He should be very productive. And then finally, one more PPR option is Brandon Bolden of the New England Patriots. He only got 2 touches last week, but he got 7 targets, and he was the primary receiving back. So it looks like he's kind of taken over the James White role since White is out. Next up, they get the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Los Angeles Chargers top 6 for opposing running backs. So great matchup. So I think if you're in a PPR league, I try to get one of those guys. I think they're going to be good for your team. Moving on to wide receivers. Who do I got? First one, Darius Slayton, 15% rostered. And obviously all the injuries to all the other weapons on the Giants team makes Darius Slayton startable because there's not that many receivers left on that team. So last week he got 9 targets against Carolina. And week 8 he gets Kansas City. Now Kansas City does have a top 10 pass defense, so that makes him be a little bit more cautious with him. But I do like him, and I think you can roster him as long as all these other players are out with injury. I also like Khalif Raymond, who for the second week in a row has gotten 7 or more targets. His efficiency was unreal against the Rams. He ended up with 115 yards on 6 catches. That's outstanding. That's almost 20 yards a catch. That's amazing. He does get a tough week 8 matchup against Philly. Philly is top 4 against opposing receivers. So, you got to temper your expectations as well. But I think he definitely needs to be rostered. Getting that kind of volume, you've got to get a guy like that on your team. The other 2 wide receivers, and wide receivers are pretty thin this week. Luckily, given the fact that you've already been through Mageddon, and you've got a bunch of players probably coming back into your starting lineup this week that were out because they were on bye in week 7. You're not going to need as many players, but here's 2 players that are on bye this week that you should get onto your roster. Okay, so these guys are not playing this week, but Hunter Renfro, who's only 49% rostered. Over the past 4 weeks, he's gotten 8 targets, 5 targets, 8 targets. That is amazingly consistent, and that's something you can trust. He's over my threshold of 7 targets a game in 3 of 4 games, and just very nice, steady volume that he's getting from Derek Carr. He's been getting over 10 points a week in PPR in 3 out of 4 weeks. He's on bye for week 8, but I think you need to get him on your team. I think he's a great addition to your bench for this week, and then you can start him in week 9. I also like, and this is going to be last call for this guy, man, Rashad Bateman, probably going to be the top waiver wire pickup this week. He's only 32% rostered. He got 6 targets last week, which is, fine, but it's not really what I'm looking for. But he turned that into 3 catches for 80 yards. First week back from injury. So this guy is a big-time, big-play player, and his volume should only increase over the course of the year. Again, last call. If you don't get Bateman this week, he's not going to be on the waiver wire anymore. So that's just FYI. I got one more. I got one more wide receiver who is playing this week, Allen Lazard. News broke on Monday Night Football that Devonte Adams tested positive for COVID, so he is on the COVID list, and they play Thursday night. Green Bay plays Thursday. So his chances of playing are very slim right now because it's only 3 days. So if he misses, I think Allen Lazard is absolutely a startable asset. They've got Arizona on Thursday, who's just outside the top 10 for opposing receivers as well. So it's a good matchup. So that's another it's another bye week play. I think he's a 1 week play. 1 week you'll play him and then you'll drop him. But I think he's a good choice if you need a receiver. Okay, so let's move on to tight ends. And the first tight end I want to talk about is C.J. Uzomah of Cincinnati, who has been blowing up. He has gotten 5 touchdowns in the past 4 weeks, and that was 2 games he got 2 touchdowns each. So there is huge demand to get this guy. But I got to say, man, this guy has regression candidate written all over him. His volume is nothing. Last week, his 2 touchdown game, he only got 3 targets. You cannot count on a guy like that. Now Uzomah is a guy I would play for daily. Daily fantasy, yes, because of his boom capability. But for season long, you don't want to rely on a tight end that's only going to get 2 or 3 targets a week. And that's all he's gotten. He's gotten 14 targets in 4 games. That's it. And he's got 14 targets, 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns on 14 targets. That does not happen. So I would expect regression from him going forward, and I would not roster him. I don't think he's viable for fantasy, despite the fact that he's having these blow-up weeks. So that's just where I'm at with that. The tight ends that I do like right now, we got Evan Engram, who's only 31% rostered, had a decent week last week, coming back from the injury. He got 8 targets in week 7, and he gets the Chiefs. So it's a good matchup. So, again, the limited targetable players on the Giants offense right now makes him viable. And so I think he's a good start. I also do like Ricky Seals-Jones of Washington, 54% rostered. And as long as Logan Thomas is out, Ricky Seals-Jones is startable. His volume over the past 3 weeks, 9 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets. Perfect. That's absolutely what you want. It's a tough matchup week 8 against Denver. Denver is top 3 against that position, so that is a concern. But I think he's absolutely a viable starter as long as Logan Thomas is out. Finally, I do want to talk about Cole Comet, and it's tough to talk about anybody from the Chicago offense, but Cole Comet was the top target getter in last week's game. Last week's terrible game by Chicago. But he has gotten, his targets have been 4 targets, 5 targets, 6 targets over the past 3 weeks. So I'm seeing some increasing volume, increasing usage. Obviously, he's the dump-off guy, the last read. And so anyway, he can be mildly productive as a tight end going forward. And he gets, he gets a bad matchup, though. San Francisco's at home is his next game. San Francisco's pretty tough, top 10 against tight ends. So anyway, if you're desperate for a tight end, I would go get him. But I mean, if you're looking for a tight end this week, I would say Engram is probably the best choice, just because the nice matchup and just the fact that he will get the volume. So go with it. As long as he's healthy, just go with it. He'll be good enough for you for fantasy. For defensive streamers, man, I gotta tell you, man, the first defense You gotta try to get only 19% rostered Cincinnati coming off big wins, man. I mean, really a big win against Baltimore last week, really dominated them and played very well defensively. And I was shocked to see that the Bengals are actually the number 1 seed in the AFC. If they went to the playoffs now, they're the team that would get the bye week. That is shocking to say and shocking to know. But they're playing great. You know, they're doing really good. They get the Jets next week. Oh yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be a very good game for them. I also do like San Francisco, who for some reason is still 71% rostered. The San Francisco defense has sucked for fantasy this year. Just has not done anything. And I think a lot of people are holding on to them because of their playoff schedule, which I can kind of understand, but it's a whole roster slot for a stupid defense that's only getting a couple of points a week. But anyway, they get Chicago in week 8. So great defense. Against a terrible offense, they should be very, very good as well. And I would expect to see a lot of San Francisco just get dumped onto the waiver wires this week. So again, you know, if you haven't done so already, I said this last week, but I'm going to say it again this week. Definitely check the waiver wire on Wednesday after everything is cleared, because everybody there was a ton of players that were picked up last week because of the Buymageddon. Now that all of their players are back, they can just take and release those guys back out onto the waiver wire. So you're going to see a lot of that. So anyway, but I always do it anyway. On Wednesday, just check your waiver wire. Just see who's still there. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. I hope your fantasy is going better than my Fantasy Football Players Championship fantasy is right now. I need these guys to bounce back. I've got all my bye week players back. It should be much better, but I'm still very nervous about what's happened over the past 2 weeks. These teams can put it together. They've done it this year. I need them to start doing it again because I'm hurting right now. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But anyway, thank you very much for watching once again. Have yourself a great fantasy day, and we will talk again on Wednesday with the starts and sits.